There's something that keeps on happening with Steam. These games that just appear seemingly out of nowhere, are budget, and just explode in social media. All your friends start posting in Discord, we all pile in to see what's going on, and this is happening more and more. Take Peak, that was the big summer sensation game of this type. But here's the thing. There's one of them that's just been viral, and it's very, very different. The game is Escape from Duckov. It's got 2 million sales. It has higher player counts than Battlefield 6. And it's a single-player game about ducks. One that I'd bet most of you have never played, or never heard of, unless you're on Steam all the time. Here's a secret we're going to let you in on. Just like the titular ducks, there is a lot more going on underneath the surface of this game. And by a lot more going on, I mean something to the tune of about $11.3 billion. Okay, we've seen 2 recent viral hits in Steam. One of them fits the pattern perfectly. It's called RV There Yet. It's a co-op physics game about a bunch of dads getting their RV home. It's wacky, it's fun, it's got 2 million sales, with just over 100,000 concurrent players. The story behind it's nice too. Nugget Entertainment just made it from a game jam project. Basically, they wanted to put it out, and then it absolutely blew up because of social media. Just quite lovely. But it's also familiar, less newsworthy. Yes, co-op games spread like wildfire, especially clip-friendly ones. We've seen that a lot. This next game, the other viral success, is the weird one. It's Escape from Duckov. As I said, 2 million sales in just 2 weeks. What it is a single-player extraction shooter. It sells for $16, which is a fair bit more than the under $10 of many other similar scoped games. But it shares some meme potential because everyone's a duck. People like ducks. But here's the thing. There's no multiplayer social spread. There's none of the network effect. So here's the question. How can this game get more concurrent players than Battlefield 6? Where at one point, this was the 5th most played game on Steam. First, the obvious thing, Escape from Duckov basically sounds like a shitpost. It's a name clearly riffing on Escape from Tarkov. And it just so happened to launch right before Tarkov hit Steam. That's pretty big, getting to market before Tarkov lands on PC's biggest platform. With a name like that is definitely one way to guarantee an audience. But as a game, it's not a shitpost. By all accounts, it is a very solid single-player top-down extraction shooter. That just so happens to be one where everyone is a duck. Now, it was made by Team Soda, and obviously Team Soda identified a gap in the market. After they did that, well, they got a really good hook with their aesthetic choices, but most importantly, they're actually delivering gameplay that is great and that you can't really get elsewhere. Seemingly in spite of everyone asking for it, where there just aren't any big single-player extraction shooters like this. So putting that all together, we can see how this actually found some fans. But here's the real point of the video. We looked into how this game even happened, and that's a far more interesting story, because there's a big difference between finding fans and then getting this scale of success. So first, let's look at the developers. First off, it's not their debut. 2021 Snake Force was riffing off, of course, the mobile game Snake, and it grew from a 2017 Ludum Dare entry. Then 2022 Soda Crisis is a 2D platform shooter, which is a good enough recipe for a dev finding their feet, trying new things. But neither of them took off like Duckov did, even though Soda Crisis shared a publisher with Duckov. And, this is the big thing, shared a parent company. That parent company being Bilibili. They are the Chinese social media platform who are worth $11.3 billion. And what that means is this isn't really an indie game. I want you to imagine if TikTok had a game publishing wing, because that is essentially what we're looking at here. They've got a wide variety of titles under their publishing wing, loads of mobile things like Azure Lane, of course, but they've spent years working on traditional video games like Soda Crisis as well. Now, of course, we can't know the exact impact of having one of the world's biggest social media platforms behind you, but if you wanted marketing and audience fit data, you could certainly have a worse publisher. And because of that, I think we're getting closer to why Duckov was able to find success. There are loads of successful elements that all add up to a viral hit. And hey, maybe you're a game developer and you can reverse engineer this to get your own viral hit. But I'm not going to waste your time stating the obvious, so let's talk about the one big element that you can't see. Comparing the Steam reviews for our viral games tells all here. It's not perfect, but you can generally map regional success against language reviews. And here's what we see when we look at RV There Yet over on Steam Scout. 51% English reviews, kind of staggering 20% Russian, and kind of makes sense. It's a bunch of lads in the wilderness solving logistical problems. Makes sense. That resonates across borders. Of course, to get a viral hit, you usually need healthy international sales, and in this case, well, it did excellently, but in this case, some regions don't seem to have that cultural affection for RVs, which is understandable. But Duckov is a very different picture. You see, Duckov's success is almost entirely contained in one region. You see, more than 75% are Chinese language reviews. And that's actually went down. It was nearly 80% last week, so we're seeing it spread internationally. Maybe this video could help. And it's the reason why we felt we had to highlight this game to talk about Escape from Duckov, because it's a viral game that effectively has not needed English-speaking audiences to find success. Now, of course, the English-speaking audience does clearly matter for international sales. The devs have been releasing all their comms in English. But Duckov found success on Steam with English language reviews being only 10% of their audience. Now, we've seen this from other games from Chinese developers. Black Myth: Wukong is a massive success story with nearly 90% of its reviews being Chinese. And the same goes with some more recent games like Wuchang: Fallen Feathers, but in all three cases, the conversation has been about the game's massive success. But you watching this video, statistically, are not the ones who are playing these games, even as we're seeing press and streamers talking about them. To make sense of this, I've got a graph. And this is something that we've actually saw in Hollywood for years. Often not to great success, looking at you guys, Legendary Pictures, just shoehorning stuff in. But basically, Chinese films can have incredible success. As an example, this year's Ne Zha 2 with $2 billion at the box office. Pretty big. Personally, I'd never heard of it. Most films like that are functionally invisible to most English-speaking audiences. It's kind of rare you get something like RRR that seems to actually blast out way beyond its initial market. Now, in games this will matter because in previous decades, China's gaming output was understood to be heavily skewed. It was mostly mobile games or multiplayer free-to-play games. But that's actually shifting here. It seems audience demand for single-player games like Duckov is actually a thing in that region. And it's also for big games like Black Myth: Wukong or things like Marvel Rivals. And what they actually show is the health of China's AAA game development industry. Now, obviously, compared to the other two, Duckov is just a wee bit smaller and probably a wee bit cheaper to develop. But right now, what we're seeing is a key difference here: distribution and visibility. So it's not just that games can have massive success in their home regions, it's that now everyone is sharing the same platforms. And that's why a lot of Steam's expansion in China does actually matter, because, well, we all also use Steam. It's effectively a global equalizer because nobody seems to be enforcing the region lock to the Steam China platform. And that's the thing that's fascinating. And back in March of this year, Game Discover Co. reported on a GDC talk that came from Valve. And in that talk, they said that more than 66% of Steam users now have a primary language other than English. And in today's story, we see that data. Yet no one is reporting in English on the latest games that are topping Steam China's player charts. And that underreporting matters because what we actually see in the numbers is that the global games economy is extremely visible and it is being participated in. It's not just a small English language region niche. Take this chart from the Apelian State of Gaming report, where it suggests the difference between Soda Crisis and Duckov, where the Chinese language MAUs in Steam more than doubled between the two releases, and spending in the region has contributed to a third of global growth since 2011. A third. So that's a lot being driven by China. But even with that, they only spend 20% of their money on non-Chinese titles. Now, on this channel, we've talked before about how games like Monster Hunter Wilds have been having massive success in China despite this. And with Duckov, we're seeing traditional viral game stuff, but happening almost entirely within one region. But here's the thing, it does not have to stay that way. It probably won't stay that way, and that is what's going to actually change what you see on Steam, and perhaps even how games even get made. Alright, all of this stuff could kind of sit in parallel, right? Where there's us in the West doing our thing, and over in China, they're doing their thing, and neither of us really cross over. And certainly for some genres and some games, that will happen. But it doesn't have to just be that, because something you may not have noticed is that Steam has started getting new FMV games every week, because it turns out games like that are popular in China and Korea. They're essentially based on the quite soapy microdrama format that's kind of everywhere on their regional social media. Now that's a whole type of video game that we weren't really making in the West, but that they are making, that is now on our Steam. meaning it's a whole new type of game that simply was not available before. At least not at this level of quality or approachability. And at the same time, we're seeing new takes on existing genres like, say, the extraction shooter. That's how we're getting great games, like Duckov. So even if it is mostly Chinese players giving that game its viral success, everyone benefits. Because gaming has always been global. People like playing games. What has not been global, though, is the distribution. And so with Steam being global and the hard firewall with Steam China not really being a thing, well, we've actually just seen the industry change. And it means that much of the doom and gloom may only be West-specific, may only be USA-specific. See, there's a tendency for audiences speaking our language, speaking English, to hyper-focus on the United States. I mean, see our previous video on the game market crash for that one. The rest of the world has always been producing games as well. The difference is that now we actually all get to benefit from that. And certainly, if you are in America and you want the American games industry to do better, you'll certainly have some competition globally to contend with. And while we're talking about Steam, you need to watch this video next because Steam have just done a big new feature that will help you discover new games that you might actually like. You can find all about it in this video next.